for your life. Okay, again, we're a green building startup. We are. And our objective is to solve a problem. What is that? Broadly speaking, to put it in context, if the computer industry had advanced at the same rate as the construction industry has, we'd still be using machines the size and cost of our cars. Okay? When little machines like this outperform those cars, I don't know, 1 millionfold now. Okay, that may sound like an exaggeration, but when we break it down, we see that it really isn't. First of all, there's the environment. Raw materials, what do we use? We use predominantly non-renewable resources. And what do we mean by non-renewable? We mean that that's not going to grow back, okay, all over the world. That stuff is not growing back. Then we add insult to injury. What do? We use a tiny percentage of it in the products we make out of it, and then we dump the rest back on Mother Nature. Okay? We do that also, that's industrial waste, this is urban waste, okay, typical urban landfill. We keep generating waste upon waste. And then with the energy side of this, energy and carbon, first there's embodied energy, that's the total amount of energy that's used in the production of a product or service. Okay. And the operating energy then is, and this is a pie chart of residential housing, where if you can see that well enough, total of 54% of the energy used in the home is for space heating and cooling. Now that's going to vary whether it's heating or cooling based on the climate. Obviously, if you're in the north, it's more cooling. In Florida, more cooling in Florida, more heating in the north. Collectively, all of this energy, because almost all of it is fossil fuels, is generating carbon. So what's the current state of the market? What's behind all of this? What are we doing today? We're all familiar with wood frame construction, also called stick-built, and you can see why. The good thing about it is that this is a renewable resource, okay? I would add, however, a pine plantation is not a forest. It's a crop like corn, all right? And if you want sustainable forestry to provide your lumber, you're going to pay a premium for that, all right? But the cost is relatively low, all right? That's a plus. But the operating costs are high. You have inferior energy, fire, structural, acoustic, and wind performance. Not terrible. I don't mean that this isn't shoddy. There could be shoddy construction, of course, but this is all about how can we do better? How can we bring construction into the 21st century? And concrete block, everybody's familiar with that. This is a crawl space or basement, I guess this is. It's usually a combination, come out of the ground with concrete block and then sticks going up. This is a medium cost, mostly on the low end, so it's pretty good in that regard. But it's got high embodied energy, got all the mining it takes to get the concrete cement that goes in it, that whole process. It's therefore carbon intensive, and it's inferior energy performance without upgrades. Okay. Now then we get to something on the higher end here, and show of hands if anybody's familiar with structural insulated panels or SIPs. Well, cheating there. You're cheating too. Okay, so 2. All right. There's another type we're going to get to also. But this is essentially plywood, as you see here, with foam insulation. Okay, it's sandwiched in there. First of all, it's higher cost. But it is low operating cost because it's very good insulation. But it's inferior fire performance. It is like stick built in that sense. But it's superior energy, it's structural, it's pretty strong stuff. Acoustically, it's good, and performance relative to wind is pretty good. Then there's insulated concrete forms. Anybody heard of that? Okay, good. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get to it. Carbon intensive, you've got all of this concrete going inside these foam forms, okay, poured in there. And so that comes with all of the carbon intensity of cement and concrete. High cost, as you can imagine. High embodied energy as well, because of what it takes to get all of this material on site and completed product. It does have low operating costs. This is a really strong, durable building system. It has superior energy, fire, structural, acoustic, and wind performance. Okay. The current state of the market shows, this is a rough estimate, as best we can come up with, it's about 95% is going to be wood frame and concrete block. Why? Because the high performing stuff has high cost. That's what it comes down to. That's why you basically haven't heard of SIPs and ICF. So what's the solution? We want raw materials that use our from waste materials as the primary ingredient. Energy-wise, we want low energy use for the transportation and fabrication of building materials. We want low energy use in the buildings themselves. As for the buildings, the performance we want is high structural, energy, fire, acoustic, ballistic. Throw that in because that's one of the advantages of RamRock. Insect as well, and then also health and safety performance. We don't want toxic chemicals in our walls. We want cost same or less than any conventional building system. What's the solution then? And a logo slide goes here before this. We're jumping now into RamRock. With RamRock, we get our raw materials out of the waste stream. In this case, our initial proof of concept, which is in a building just down the street here in our laboratory, we collected waste roof shingles, which are landfilled to the tune of maybe 10 million a year, 10 million tons of them. We collected them, we processed them very simply by shredding them into little quarter-inch pieces and smaller. Then to block fabrication of our product, we take this design, and anybody will recognize this relative to the toys we all played with as kids, okay? What you see is the male-female interlocking forms, and inside these blocks we have what are called chases, 1 inch diameter chases running through the blocks so that when they line up in a wall, you can do something with them. I'll show you that in a minute. So that's what we set out to make. This is a very down and dirty operation here with an old mothballed piece of equipment that we retrofitted. But out comes the first RamRock. And what does it look like? Well, it looks pretty much like what we designed. Wall construction. Well, we take the blocks and we stack them up. Dry stack, just like the interlocking toys. Okay, so you see the walls and the inside interior partition as well here. Okay, exterior and interior as needed, as can be done. It can't always be done. Walls go up, we have a gable end here. And then how do we integrate all of this with the other building components? Well, we put a roof on, windows and doors coming next. Now, we didn't have the insulation and the other components. We didn't get video or pictures of that. Just an oversight. So we built a little mock-up here. And what you're seeing here is our dry stacked wall. This is just a sort of a cutaway. Then we have 1.5 inches of foam insulation, rigid insulation on each side. So you can see that this is kind of taking off on the ICF concept, okay? Except the C is, there's no C, that's not concrete in the middle, that's 100% recycled waste roof shingles. Okay, and this is going to have an R value, by the way, of at least 24, which is way up there. And for a number of reasons will perform to that standard or better, because the envelope doesn't have any what's called thermal bridging in it. So there's your exterior. What we're showing here, we did a kind of a simulated stucco on the outside. And then again, the chases. Here you see, oops, here you see Romex electrical wiring. This is PEX plastic tubing for the plumbing. And this is called all thread, and that's just reinforcement where we're able to tie the poured foundation to the roof through the wall. Okay, so everything is easily coordinated, HVAC as well too. And our chief technician is a master plumber and electrician, and he said any plumber or electrician has a problem with this, you don't want it, because it's that simple. So we put it all together and we put the finishing on the outside, and there you are. This little building is 2 blocks down the street. Okay, you can't tell it in this picture, but this wall here is hardy plank. This is stucco, and the other one is shows a beautiful poplar bark siding, but it all went in very easily. The carpenters kind of, whoa, when they shot the nails in to put all that stuff up. So building performance. This is a relative chart, but we put this together just to give you a good look, reasonably good look at the performance. The smaller the bar, the shorter the bar, the better. Okay. So we see wood, CMU, that's concrete block, ICF, SIPs, and RamRock. And we're beating them all, and substantially so. Our business model, I'll go through this very quickly. R&D, we get paid for our raw materials. Roofers will pay us in lieu of landfill tipping fees to take these things off their hand, and they get to become a certified RamRock recycler. So for the same price, when you make your call to re-roof your house, who do you want? The guy who's going to take your old shingles to the landfill, dump them, or do you want somebody who's going to use them for somebody else's benefit? Okay? So they'll appreciate both the savings, we'll take it for less than landfill, and the recycling certification. So we get paid, we're under contract with a global mining company already, trying to solve their problem for them, and I think we're very close to having done that. We're also looking to sell a global master license to another company, Quest Energy. Hope to get that done by the end of the year. We'll also sometime next year create RamRock Chattanooga to prove out the entire concept here in town, and then license it from there through Quest, assuming that goes through. I'll run quickly through this timeline. I kind of just did, but master license, RamRock Chattanooga, building code approval, obviously very important. Build a model RamRock home for Habitat. We want to do that. Launch RamRock Chattanooga, and then commercialization through sub-licensing. Team very quickly. Myself, Dave Hausman, our acting chief financial officer, Doug Umby, I mentioned, our chief technician, chemist Pete Stein, Larry Cloud, design engineer, Jay Crandall, structural, Chris Mathis, code consultant. And let me back up one and just say those collectively, in there is probably a good 75 years of construction experience alone, not to mention Dave's, I don't know, 125 more.
Not quite that.
But it's a lot, and there's a difference between a company in the construction industry trying to bring something new to it than there is with a social media startup, okay? Nothing wrong with them, but there's a difference. These aren't 20-somethings, okay? We're glad to have We have consultants of general mentor Dan Daly for our clean tech, Michael, who's been invaluable so far already. And here's our 20-something team members on the social media side, without whom we wouldn't have this presentation. So that's who we are and what we're doing. Questions?
The master license, what does that mean? Is that are you licensing the technology for them to manufacture?
Both. They'll be able to do internally, build on their own. They're folding other alternative technologies into their company. One of them is a high-tech, cutting-edge tire pyrolysis process, which is burning without oxygen essentially, and they're building plants around the country and the world. And at those locations, when they're there, they might as well go into the RamRock business. But they can also sell licenses. We get paid royalties either way. That's where our money really primarily is, selling upfront license fees and then licensing on block production, royalties on block production.
So you mentioned shingles. Is that primarily the thing that's being used to build these blocks? And is there a limit to how many units you could build based on shingle recycling?
Sure, we can only build as much as the supply. 10 million tons annually is a lot in a sense. It's not even a blip on the radar screen in terms of what's out there in terms of urban industrial solid waste. We'll use whatever we can because we love this stuff. You shred it and heat it a little bit and it'll form anything you want. I mean, we can make roof tiles out of it, pavers out of it. We're looking to do that sort of thing too. Overall, we want to build what we call a recipe book of taking these wastes, developing formulas for them like the mine tailings that we're using. And also we use these materials where they're generated, locally, regionally. Like for instance, the mining company, this is one of their plants up in New England. Okay, so we would make product up there and serve the New England market. It's always want, LEED always wants indigenous raw materials, right? Well, that's what we'll be doing, but it's also indigenous waste materials on top of that. So recycling.
You might mention that it's one of the best sources that you've got in that it'll stick to anything and it'll encapsulate anything.
Yeah, we
You
just,
can put fresh glass in it, you can put fiberglass, anything and even things with some toxicity because it will encapsulate it and therefore render it non-toxic.
right, as long as if there's trace something in it. But for the most part, the vast majority, EPA said back in the 80s that in the U.S. we generate about 7.6 billion tons of industrial solid waste every year. That's stuff we pile up after we've taken a little bit of what we need. That was in the 80s when the U.S. population was a third less than it is today, so I don't know what the number is now. But suffice it to say that our supply of raw materials is endless. We don't know exactly what the raw material is, but we know it's endless. And that's around the world as well.
So where are you at if you had a customer right now that wanted to build with RamRock? How would you go about servicing them? Are you ready for that?
Are you ready? We actually had a couple that was ready 3 years ago. 3 years ago. When we barely got started. We just couldn't get there. They were ready to build over in Walton Park or in St. Elmo. So we've had people come to us. We have a consultant to the global mining company up in Vermont. She lives in a town about 20 miles away, and she's selling her house, getting ready to build. She's already got her architect with the plan. So it's basically, the steps are, we have to prove the whole system technically and financially, business-wise, okay? And that's what RamRock Chattanooga's got to do. We can build one-offs with the approval of a professional engineer. He can approve this particular building, like our consultant with Omea. So short answer is we're not ready yet. We've got to get the first production fabricator built. We can't use the unit I showed you. It's just an old piece of junk basically, but we love it. That's where we are today. So soon, I hope sometime mid next year, we're off and running here in town.
you showed that chart with the bars and how it was almost half. Well, I guess maybe two questions. What were the numbers across the bottom? It was like 0, 25, and then 50.
Those are percentages, and the
Okay.
two colors were embodied energy and operating energy.
And then where are you at cost-wise to the stick build?
We aren't sure yet, but we've run our projections. We've tried to be very conservative, okay? We're getting paid for our raw materials. We know, obviously, that's different from the competition, right? They're paying something and sometimes a lot. We'll see when we actually are building our first home and we can track the costs. We do a home for Habitat as just to get out there in the marketplace. One of the things that makes us green, and you need this if you're going to be a green builder and have a real impact, you have to be cost effective, or you're not going to be in the market like ICFs or SIPs, right? So with our ease of installation, I mean, this is Legos for adults, as we say. Okay, this is just stacking. We've got software, proprietary software that tells you in advance where every block and block type, because they're not all the same shape, every one of them goes in every course, in every wall going in. It's built by numbers in that regard. Okay, so very simple.
Do like a 1-minute summary of how a structure would be assembled and what talents are needed to do that compared with, for instance.
Yeah, well, you don't need skilled masons. One of the reasons we want to build a Habitat home is we want them to have more volunteer participation. Let's face it, most of us aren't plumbers, electricians. Some of us are.
No, I'm not. I'm the guy that's unskilled.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we can show up and hand materials to somebody who knows what to do with the stud or the concrete block. Well, with RamRock, come on. Everybody can grab a block and put it where it goes. That's it. So, in that regard, the system is basically unskilled labor, and that can be day laborers, Habitat type volunteers, or do-it-yourselfers. I mean, you could order the blocks for your home, have them delivered or made on site, because we can do both, depending on the raw material. With shingles, we can bring our portable system to the building site and make and lay, because all they're doing is cooling, they're not curing. You just take it out and put it in the wall. But if you're building yourself, and it's the weekend, and you got the family there, everybody can pitch in and build the walls. It's that simple.
The software is basically paint by the numbers.
That's right. RamCAD.
And
Computer
make
aided.
and lay, no mortar, etc.
What's a block weight?
Presently about 20 pounds. And the dimensions are 4 thick, 6 high, 12 wide. So you can stay. And we're looking to introduce some lighter fibers to both strengthen and lighten. We'd like to lighten it some. There's that happy medium, and we want the Goldilocks weight that's not too light and not too heavy. We're okay where we are, but that's the goal.
How do you control quality when the range of raw materials varies?
Well, we're going to always oversee the raw materials supply chain. We're going to know what's going into a block wherever it is around the world. And so we're certifying those materials. Either we're actually providing them or we're making sure the provider meets our standards of non-toxicity, et cetera.
And would one project use one type of block?
Probably.
Yeah, so you would never.
Unless we did some roof tiles out of something and/or pavers and mix and match. That could happen, ultimately.
You can try fasteners into this block, nails, screws, and cut through.
Yeah, like I said, when the carpenters showed up, they didn't know. They just took their nail gun and popped it, and it was shot right in. So they were impressed. It's one good thing about mimicking ICF is that all the fastening, all the finishes, all that is known now. It's out in the marketplace. So just because the center of the wall is RamRock instead of concrete, the rest is ICF-like. So We got to make some adaptations, but as Michael keeps assuring me, there's 1,000 ways to do this and that and the other. Okay?
So you're looking for investment right now. Where are you going to spend that investment?
Well, this process, which hopefully we are selected as one of the final 4 from the region, and so we'll go to Silicon Valley if we do in November to present with financials. We left those out for today, but of course anybody who wants to invest can see them later. But we have those numbers. We're looking for Silicon Valley investment, but ideally the investment would come from the Chattanooga area. So we have made it clear to Charlie Brock with Launch Tennessee, he heads that up now, the startup accelerator, that we will make our offer to them first, give them first right of refusal basically, to take all or at least some of that investment.
So what the Bill's question though is, what do you need it for?
Yeah, what are your current pain points? Yeah.
We got to build the first production block fabricator, building code approval, launch RamRock Chattanooga. Those are the 3 things. Once RamRock Chattanooga has proven the technical and business cases for RamRock, then we're really off and running. And we're going to give that probably a good 18 months, at least a year, to get everything under our belt where we can show potential licensees that we're for real, and the general public. But we feel very good at this point. It's all coming together very well. So we think this process is I won't say just a formality, but we're proceeding well.
For your licensors, the people that would buy, say your master block maker, things like that, how long do you think they would take to recoup their investment in that license?
We've got it in our projections. I can't say offhand.
What was the question, Dave?
What's it going to take to recoup your investment if you buy a license? How long?
Well, it obviously depends on how aggressive you are in penetrating what would be a resistant market, meaning every other builder who only knows how to build with 2x4s and concrete blocks. But someone in each location is going to undertake to be a licensee and go be the wall builder for other contractors, showing them that this is bulletproof, vermin-proof, fireproof, easily laid without pesky trays that are difficult to mobilize and manage. And it'll be a learning curve.
It really is.
There's a local architect
We
who
took
already signed up and said, I can build with that.
Bill just asked if it's bulletproof. We took a 45 caliber pistol at point blank range down here in our shop. Don't tell anybody else we did that. And shot it at a
first
block.
shooting on the south side.
I took that out of the camera.
And shot it at a block, and the bullet pancaked and bounced off.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, we found the bullet back here.
Could take this to Mexico.
You also put a blowtorch on.
Yeah, we put an 1800 degree MAP gas flame on a block outside where it's getting fed a lot of fuel, just practically right on the block. And 2.5 hours later, it had gotten about halfway through. That was on a shingle block. And the only reason we stopped is because we didn't start till mid-afternoon when it was time to go home. But we think the energy performance is going to be, regardless of the raw material, and it may be that shingles perform better than any other regular masonry product just because it's not really a concrete type rock-like block. This is a petroleum-based block, and it's going to have millions of tiny air bubbles, air pockets in there. So we'll see once we test it, but we aren't planning for high R value in the masonry itself. That's what that insulation is for. The masonry does its thing. Some shingles might prove to be better. That'd be great if they did.
It sounds like the military applications for that as well?
Yeah, if we've thought of that, and if they come to us as word gets out, and word's gonna get out. I mean, the story kind of tells itself. Everybody gets recycling and everybody gets Legos. So, and as we're able to do YouTube videos, and then in marketing, you know, as we all know, there are people called the early adopters who are gonna stand in line all night for that first iPhone, and they don't care what they pay for it. Well, they care, but they'll pay. They know they're going to pay a lot more for it. Well, there are going to be plenty of early adopters in RamRock. The general public just says, and we've had plenty of people come to say, just, you know, when are you going to be ready? I want to build now. And they'll lead like they always do, and then you get the early adopters, and then the next wave, and then finally you've got real market penetration. And ironically, in the building business, were we trying to introduce, had we been trying to introduce RamRock at the height of the housing bubble, the 06, builders had no reason to stop to talk to us because they were building all they could, okay? More than they should have, obviously, okay? Today, competitive advantage is absolutely vital, so they're looking for what's going to give them that leg up in the marketplace, and so this is the kind of thing they say, yeah, I want to get certified to do this.
You might also mention that the people we're working with are basically focusing on how they can make block on their premises.
Oh, you mean
Talking
Omnia?
about Omnia or Owings Corning or TVA or what have you. We have huge waste streams that haven't figured out how to convert those into something useful.
Yeah, and you mentioned TVA. Yes, we can make our block out of coal ash, meaning not just the high-grade ashes that have a market, but the scrubber sludge that gets dumped in retention ponds that, as we all now know, can break. But yes, we're in a region, take this mining company, we will probably build a plant, a RamRock plant at their plant.
Right.
They got plenty of room, and then we get an order for a house. Got the plans, we know all the blocks to make, we palletize flatbed, and it goes straight to it might travel 200 miles to New York City or whatever, but
TVA pays you to sit there and take rid of their waste.
pardon,
TVA pays you to get rid of their waste.
TVA does not
No, they wouldn't.
yet.
But they
Well,
could.
the first time I went to a TVA coal plant, the Widow's Creek over in northeast Alabama, I was met at the gate by a young lady, and she has to escort me, hops in the truck, and we drive out, and I asked her as we approached this 500-acre moonscape, I said, what are your disposal costs run? And she said, oh, they're very small because we have so much land. And in my mind, I finished her sentence for her, because we have so much land to destroy with impunity, meaning these costs get externalized onto the environment and future taxpayers to clean up the mess. So yes, they should pay us. And we think, and they're like, TVA and the whole industry is pretty much stuck in the mud, literally. And then after the 2008 spill, and Kingston spill, TVA's already spent $1 billion in cleanup. They're looking at $2 billion more just to convert from wet to dry storage. In other words, to a different way to sweep the stuff under the rug. And we're going, why don't you spend a fraction of that and create big green building products, get out of the pond business. So we hope they'll come around. If we can build a coal ash home that does what we think it'll do, then I think the public will start to say, hey, come on, you need to do something good with this, and you need to pay to get it done.
So is that the same kind of machines you use for using shingles? That you can purchase that?
Should be, I mean, it'll be mostly the same. It's hydraulic compression. We distinguish between the asphaltic side of the equation and what we call the aqueous side, meaning you got to add water to some sort of bulk with a curing agent in it. But we don't use Portland cement, and hope we never will. We've got other ways of skinning that cat. Because for every ton of Portland that is produced, a ton of carbon is released into the atmosphere. So when you're talking 15, 20 billion tons of Portland produced every year, that's a lot of carbon.
So what can members of this organization do to kind of help you with your future progress?
Go with it.
Well, I mean, I think one thing would be just some feedback on the presentation. And,
Yes.
um,
And that's what a lot of this is about, because Clean Tech wants us out in the marketplace, talking to general public, builders, architects, engineers, et cetera. So by all means, we're not here to be praised, we'd love to be, but we want to hear what you think and what you think might be problematic. So,
I think that directly addressing some of the Q&A that you heard here and other places, really bring that to the front so that people understand how this is going to be distributed, and what your steps.
and we're going to do that also with support slides that we just haven't organized yet. So when you ask a particular question about what does it cost? Well, we ran these numbers, here's our estimate. And be able to answer them pictorially as well. So yes,
One observation, in this high light intensity, that
Some
really
of the photos.
doesn't work. You can't see the block.
That's just
coming out.
because
I understand it's my fault.
Well, well, no, actually, some of those photos, you could touch up some in Photoshop to increase the contrast.
Yeah, the definition is poor in this high light.
Yeah.
yeah, that will be the case when
I
we're
don't know.
Clean Tech, surely.
I mean, you encounter a range of issues with projections. So,
Yeah, the
I would
photos
say
were
it's
very
worth.
difficult to see that block
Yeah.
coming out and see the.
I've seen those photos on my
Yeah.
computer, and they're not very high contrast. So it might be worth
All right.
modifying them. in
Well, we'll
Photoshop.
talk with Garen and David.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say
They can be digitally enhanced.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
from a pure branding, marketing perspective, the whole presentation felt a little bit, just in terms of font, and color, and all of that, it feels like it could be a little bit tighter in terms of using your logo that you have and making everything feel cohesive in the presentation. That would make me feel like it was a stronger brand behind it.
You mean
You've
it-
got a great logo, it appears, and just cleaning that up so it feels consistent as a presentation, purely marketing perspective. Looking at it.
Okay.
But,
Can you be a little more specific?
the graphic design of it, the chart types that were used throughout it, the fonts that were used throughout it, the flow of the information through the presentation. It sounds like you've got a brand marketing company that you're working with. Just make that feel more cohesive so
Tell
that
me that.
people, when they see that RamRock the next time, they know what the feel of your company is.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I think you could do like a template too. I don't know. if
Yeah,
that's-
yeah, exactly.
That's what we do a lot of.
A template,
Have a standard template, and even if you don't have your logo on the bottom, it's the same template, so the visual aspect drives into it. Because if you start with architectural presentations, you can't use your name. The visual template can happen. And as you go from slide to slide, or president, so it'll visually happen.
we'll take that up with our 20-somethings.
One of the things that I would say, and I don't know how you could do it now because you haven't built one, but there was a study done and it just showed that people, the reason they bought the Prius is so that everybody knew that they were green. So with your house design, if you do something that it pops different from everything else, people invest in that. So they showed people like with solar panels that they would go great on the back side of their house. And they said, no, we don't want them on the back side of our house. Our neighbors can't see them. And so it was all about the perception of being green and not the efficiency of the solar panels.
I think there's a limit to that though, because that's only effective with the early adopters. If you want deep market penetration and widespread market penetration, you want people to basically have what they want, whatever they want. It can look like that. But it's a good point.
Well,
in terms of
like the
being
Civic
important.
Hybrid is not
Yeah.
nearly as popular as the Prius.
Yeah.
Because when someone drives a Civic Hybrid, they don't know that that's that. Everybody buys
There
a
are also
Prius.
some really, really ugly hybrids that weren't ever
Yeah, right. They
popular
right.
but they were just equally as.
But
And that's a branding thing.
like a
Oh,
curb
Prius
thing, like
Force,
if someone from the curb could tell that that's what
Well, now,
people-
see, that's a very interesting point, though, is that we don't want it, oh, that's a RamRock house, as opposed to the look of any other house, because we want, RamRock is inside. It's in
right,
the wall.
right, and that I think that's going to be as difficult.
The EVP sign.
Yeah, I mean, even something that just showed that.
Inside.
Sure, well, I mean, they'll see it go
Yeah.
up, they'll see it go up,
Like
everybody
the
will know.
insult thing. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody will know when it's going up. There goes a RamRock, so, you know, they'll see that. But we want it to look like the customer wants it to look.
I think that's a cool idea, though. I mean, that could be
Just
a nice
something,
graphic,
just
like-
something so that people know, because that will help spread your name without you doing anything. People
Well,
driving by will go, "That's that."
Remember when we were building the 8x8, we said, why don't we have a little cutout so they can really see how this can be
Yeah.
built? It may be someone might say, I'd like to build the house this way, but cut it out. I'd like to show my friends how this thing.
So when I have company over, I can,
Yeah, right.
yeah, we could do that. And I was thinking of maybe, you know, they're not gonna want our logo on the outside of the house.
No, yeah, it doesn't have to be a logo, but there.
It'd
Yeah,
be
there's
nice if
definitely
they did.
something to say that the house continues to market for RamRock long after it's just been built and constructed. People know that that's what that was. And that if someone were to come and want to rob a house and shoot a place up, they wouldn't go to that one because they know that.
Go to the neighbor.
Somehow they know it's RamRock, they go, never mind, let's go next door.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming down
Thank
and
you.
talking to us.
Great, thank you all very much.